for staying in on our session. My name is Derek Seiler, and I work for Sungard Availability Services. And I have a colleague of mine. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick as well?
Hi, I'm Mickey Schniebel. I'm product manager for cloud recovery at Sungard.
He has the specific portfolio responsibility for a cloud recovery solution we build off of Zerto, which is one of our key technology partners. So quick show of hands. Everybody raise your hand if you know who Sungard is, if you've heard of the name Sungard before. All right. Oh, hey. Oh. Yeah, we will keep you on your toes throughout, right? Okay. Now, I'll give this one away. I'll give this football away if you can tell me what Sungard is most known for. What are we known for? What are we the leader in? What product category, what solution are we going to talk about today that Sungard is most known for? DR. I heard DR. Was that right here? Oh, no, we got a hand up. All right. There we go. Man, that's a tight spiral. Yeah, so we are. We're the leaders in disaster recovery. We've been in the business for over 30 years now. We've done well over 100,000 disaster recovery tests, right, which is the preparation for our contracted clients if they have an outage in their IT systems. We've done over 100,000 of those, and we've done over 3,000 successful recoveries. I can't say bat 1,000 because we're talking about football, but we bat 1,000 when it comes to successfully recovering our customers. Okay, we've never had an instance where we haven't been able to successfully recover our customers. And this even includes instances of major systemic wide area outages like Katrina or Hurricane Sandy when it came out the East Coast, right? We had 400 customers during Hurricane Sandy declare, and we successfully, 200 actually invoked, meaning coming in and restored their systems in our recovery centers, and we successfully recovered all of them, right? So we have that built-in capacity in the way that we build out our DRAS portfolio to be able to handle that overflow and be able to successfully recover everybody, right? So these aren't issues, though, that should be, foreign to you guys if you're, kind of the IT leaders within your organization, right? According to our industry analysis, over 50% of y'all have had at least 6 to 10 outages in your IT systems, in your IT platforms over the last 3 to 5 years, right? So it's something that's happening. And again, it's not always the large act of God stuff, right? It's not always hurricanes or the California wildfires. We picked up, customers there, right, when that was going on. All the flooding that's been happening in the Midwest, we picked up customers there when that's been going on. What's much more common is your, server failure or human error or some sort of outage in the network that causes serious disruption. And it's happening all the time, right? Just literally, I don't know if anybody saw this in the news, but JetBlue. I was giving a presentation to an AT&T audience, speaking about an AT&T person that we just followed. I was giving a presentation to an AT&T audience just last week, and JetBlue had a system-wide outage in their Sabre reservation system, right? So it was down. So what happens when you literally can't, book new customers, right? They're going to just simply move on to the next airline. And the cost of being down is anywhere from a low of $100,000 to upwards of $250,000 per hour of downtime, right? And that's just the hard cost. Then you have all the soft costs in terms of reputational risk, brand damage, changes in the C-suite. CIOs and CTOs are losing their job over this stuff now. And only 20% of customers would say that they have the necessary staffing. You want me to take the clicker to advance? Okay. Have the necessary staffing to actually, recover from a disaster, right? It's simply not top of mind for people, right? When you're thinking about your IT systems and your platforms, what are you usually, thinking about most? You're thinking about availability. You're thinking about, whatever, changes in the application environment that you want to roll out. You want to make that application more responsive and receptive to your customers. You want to better enable, your application-led business owners to be more productive. You're not thinking about backup and DR, right? It's way, 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 way down on the list. However, if you're not doing it appropriately and you don't have the resources you need, it can cause you a serious problem when you have a challenge. Okay, so let me get another football out. Why are there so many failed recoveries, right? So 3 things. One, most customers aren't regularly testing and not testing under a real-world scenario as to whether or not they can successfully recover their system. So our biggest competition isn't Amazon, it's not Azure, it's not Rackspace, it's not TierPoint, it's not, it's not anybody else that would be in the MSP space. Our single biggest competition is also the customers we're trying to sell to, right? Because 9 times out of 10, they're doing a DIY solution. They're replicating between a production environment and one of their test dev facilities. They may even be using a wonderful technology like Zerto, right? But they're not testing it, with enough rigor and with enough regularity to actually be ready when they have a serious outage, right? Number 2, divergence of recovery and production configurations. This is a big one, and I think these sort of graduate as they go, right? This is a big one. So your production environment is typically going through maybe thousands, even tens of thousands of changes, right? OS changes and updates and so forth. If you're not reflecting those in your recovery procedures, sometimes called your run book, right? So if your run book isn't current and reflective of your configuration management in your production environment, what's going to happen when you go and recover, right? You're going to fail your recovery, right? And then the third one, which is organizational readiness, right? Is that quote from Dwight Eisenhower: "Plans are useless and planning is everything," right? Most often, your recovery is going to fail because you don't have the people and processes you need to recover. The technology is going to do what it needs to do. The ones and zeros get to where they need to be, right? But you don't have the right processes, and most importantly, you don't have the right people, right? And I'll tell you a quick story, and then I'll give it one of these awesome footballs away that I know you guys are all looking forward to get. So I was having a conversation with a CIO in the energy space down in Houston. Their recovery facility was up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? And they had an event. They had a hurricane coming in to the Gulf of Mexico, right? Their main recovery guy was trying to find his family at the time when the CIO, said, "I need you on the next plane to Tulsa. We're going to fail over our systems, right? It's absolutely vital I get you there as quick as I can because you need to orchestrate my entire recovery once we fail everything over, right?" That key guy, that one key guy, right, the single throat to joke, said, "I don't know where my family is right now," right? So I'm going to find where my family is because they're somewhere down in Galveston and I can't reach them. If you have to fire me, you go ahead and do that. Once I find my family, then I'm getting on the next plane to Oklahoma, okay? So I'll ask a question for one of these awesome footballs. What just happened there, other than maybe the guy getting fired? Right? There you go. You got it. Can I throw it to you? Let me see how good it is. All right. Duck. All right. Right. So what you had was the single throat to joke, right? The single point of failure, single point of accountability. You had a person, a human being, right? When Sandy came up the East Coast, we had New Jersey's recovery operations running out of our Carlsbad data center. And we have a product that different than this called Workgroup, where it's basically just a desk and a chair and a phone and a desktop computer that to interact with your restored systems, right? Well, we had gas pumping trucks in front of the Carlsbad recovery facility because there was no gas stations operating in the entire tri-state area, right? No gas getting in and out of the tri-state area. So these operators whose systems we're restoring, right, they need to get back to their families at night. They need to get back in during the day. JFK is closed. LaGuardia is closed. Newark is closed. How do you get people in and out, right? These are the kind of things that nobody really thinks about when you have a disaster strike, right? Do you have the appropriate amount of network bandwidth, right? Because you're going to have an awful lot of burstability in that in terms of redirected network traffic to your restored systems, right? So these are the things, sure, building it on great technology is vital and it's important, but it's the people and the processes that are going to most often fail you.
Let's skip that.
Okay, so one of the things that we lead customers through is, as we're talking to them about recovery from an architecture perspective, is this discussion, which in essence is really a mix of cost and risk, right? So it's a risk analysis question, right? Do you tier your app? So I will give another one of these awesome footballs away to the first person that can say yes to who said yes? Raise your hand. All right. Do you tier your applications?
Well done.
I'll give another one away. Someone else says yes. Do you actually tier your applications today? Yep, all right. Is it going? Oh, I overshot. Oh, well. Gonna have to stick to IT. Yes, so this is a great discussion, right? So when you guys, you're typically owning your architecture from a platform perspective, right? When you're talking to your application line of business owners and you're saying, how long can you afford to be down, right? They're probably going, 0, none. Well, that's a ridiculous answer, right? Of course, that's going to be their answer, but it's also a ridiculous answer, right? If you're architecting your entire resiliency strategy on tier 0, you're overpaying considerably, right? Now, it might be vital for your ERP system, which is the heartbeat of your business, and you might have to have a replica copy of that in near instant state, with synchronous or asynchronous replication, sure, right? But your tier 2s, your tier 3s, right? Maybe you can afford to get those back up in 2 to 4 hours. Maybe you can afford to get those back up in 6 to 12 hours. Maybe some you can afford to have down a day or 2. Right, and it's not always the same ones too, right? I had another conversation with another IT leader up in the energy space, this time in Alberta, Canada, and the tar sands and all the development that they're doing up there for North America's energy needs, right? Their single biggest and most important application was payroll, right? Which is a little different because usually you would talk about it, it would be email or ERP system or something like that, right? Theirs was payroll. They said, you don't understand. If we miss a single payroll, every one of my employees will walk out, go across the street, go to my competitor, and sign up there. That's how scarce labor is up there for, I don't know what they call them, roughneckers or wildcatters or something. I don't know. They got a cool name. That's how scarce the labor is in those markets, right? So that was their tier 1 application, was payroll. Now you have that same conversation with another customer. They go, well, we do it, biweekly as long as it's up, in 3 to 5 business days. That's okay, right? We can afford something like maybe backup for a restore point off of that. So let me go ahead and switch over.
Okay.
And Mickey's going to talk about our cloud recovery portfolio, specifically built on Zerto, and a little bit more about the technology itself.
Right. So cloud recovery virtual servers, that's our Zerto-based tech offering. And do we have any future customers in the audience? There
we go.
Scan him. Okay. So this solution comes with an SLA-backed 2-hour RTO. And I will talk about that in 2 slides. We offer this in 3 North American PCI-compliant data centers and 1 in Europe. All our cloud recovery services come fully managed. And let's have a look what fully managed means. It means that all these things are included in what we're doing and what you pay us. So first of all, the software, the license, in our case, Zerto, right? And then the target infrastructure, which is all the hardware, which means with us, you're doing an OpEx model. There's no CapEx expense. You don't invest in any hardware. We help you to design, to initially configure, and to install the solution in your environment and keep it up and running and seated. And once we move you to the steady state, we monitor you 24/7. We take care of any hiccups. We all love Zerto, and their solution is great, but be realistic, right? Sometimes things fail, and that's where we come and play, and we monitor this, and we fix it immediately. If there's a Zerto update, we update the software, et cetera, et cetera. If you have a test or, worse, a disaster, it's all hands on deck. You get 40 years of operational experience from Sungard to help you with your test or your disaster. And that is so important. In a disaster, not to be alone, to have someone who has done that many, many times, who has done that for your environment and test many times before and knows exactly what to do and what not to do to recover you in the fastest, most successful way. So that's all included when we talk about managed services. I told you it's SLA-backed, the RTO, and I talked about 2 hours, and you wonder, like, why is this 2 hours? Zerto is doing this in 5 minutes, right? Why are you taking 2 hours? The reason for that is we're realistic. We're not talking about 25 VMs. We're talking about 100, 250, 500 VMs. There will be machines who might not boot up correctly. Black screen. Some machines come up, wrong IP address, right? So our operations team validates each single VM and make sure it's booting up to the login screen, the IP address is correct, everything else is good. If it finds issues, it troubleshoots them, it fixes them, it goes to a different retention point to make sure it really recovers. As soon as we validated a machine and it's good, we hand it over. So maybe within 15 minutes, you have your machine back. But again, be realistic. If things happen, then we are still within our time frame. And you see this here, there's a tier 1 and a tier 2, and tier 2 comes to a lower price. And tier 1 starts with 100 or less VMs recovered in 2 hours. And that is also a good feeling that, you know, even if things don't go smoothly and you have problems, we recover you within that time frame. That is what the SLA is doing. If we don't, we pay penalties. We pay you money. Okay? So that can be very important in that area, you know, in your job to have us on your side. And then you get, with these tiers, annual test included 4 for tier 1 and 2 for tier 2. And in these tests, we actually prove these numbers to you. The test is not just, does everything work? No, does everything work within that RTO, within that SLA? And that is our managed service with Cloud Recovery Virtual Service. Back to you.
Okay. So, Mickey, I have a question then.
Yeah.
What if I have not just virtual servers that I need to recover? What if I have physical servers too?
Right, and that is something nobody talks here at this conference, right? It's all virtual, and we expect everything is in one environment. But sometimes you have an AIX with DB2 on it for your SAP system that you cannot get rid of, right? It's just one machine, but unfortunately it's the most important. You have an iSeries in a basement that you cannot switch off, right? This all is part of recovery, and Sungard offers for all these different types solutions. So we have cloud recovery not just for virtual servers, but also for physical, for iSeries, for Unix, Linux, and so on.
Perfect, yep. So I have a ridiculously easy question for the audience then. Does Sungard recover more than just your virtual servers? Oh, who said yeah? I heard it right over there. All right. All that was just awesome. Oh man, that was spiraling everything. All right, so here's a use case, right? So this is a customer, name withheld, right? That is one of our very first, or soon-to-be testimonial, headquartered in Columbus, Ohio, provider of server infrastructure solutions. They were not meeting their RTO and RPO, right? So typically, from the managed service provider side of this, disaster recovery is an event-triggered sale, right? It's a conversation that typically starts based on some event that triggers them to realize, oh wait, wow, we're not restoring within the RTOs and RPOs that we need to. We have exposure, we have unreasonable business risk. Let's call Sungard, you know, and away we go. So we came in, we talked about our full cloud recovery portfolio, right? So that's just our internal brand name for an entire umbrella of services, one of which we build off of Zerto as a managed and cloud delivered service. But we also have one off of SRM, right? And I won't say that name again at this conference. So we presented these options to the customers. We looked through the technology, we reviewed the features, and they quickly decided Zerto was the solution that they wanted to do because it was hypervisor and storage agnostic, and it quickly met their recovery objectives from their virtual machine landscape. We were able to significantly improve their RTOs and RPOs to show real business value back to the organization, and importantly, from the owners of the IT infrastructure and platforms, they were able to show that value back to the application line of business owners in the C-suite, right? They were unrecoverable, now they're recoverable, they're tested, with the assurity of an SLA that we will test within the guidelines that we establish based on the number of virtual machines that we're restoring for them. And then there's real teeth in it, right? You know, how many times can you go for an IT workload that you want to get rid of anyway, right? Nobody wants to own backup and recovery. It's a headache. It's difficult to manage. But how many times are you able to say back organizationally, not only, you know, can we find a way to do it, you know, better, faster, cheaper, but we're going to get paid against the failure to deliver, right? There's no internal IT department that's going to pay organizationally back if they don't, you know, successfully recover their IT systems within a certain time frame. So
we're slowly running out of time.
we're still running out of time? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the recent Forrester Wave report. I'll give away one, and we'll keep two for some questions at the end. One last awesome football. If you can tell us who is the leader in Forrester's recent Wave report for disaster recovery as a service. Oh, all right.
In the keynote today, they mentioned that study, and they took numbers out of that study, so that's where we're the leaders.
Yeah, and we're also in the leader quadrant for Gartner as well. Gartner typically is looking at it more from the perspective of you know, virtual machine recovery only. Forrester is looking at it from a little bit more holistic perspective of can you do the physicals, the virtuals, and stuff beyond x86 platform, right? So that's where, you know, we break away, you know, even more considerably because we can do those more legacy platforms in addition to your VMs. But we were named leader in that category. Okay. So we have a display down on the main floor area. Please come by and chat with us more. We have some more of these footballs to give away. And then, obviously, you know, Peyton Manning's keynote at 5 today. I had a joke that I will give a football to whoever does as he goes up and talks about leadership, should he mention the leadership qualities of losing to the New England Patriots all the time. Anyway, okay, can we answer any questions for you guys? Yes?
So we do the validation only up to the operating system to see if login screen reacts and is there. We do have a service that we offer on top of that, we work together with you. If you give us your credentials, we go up to the application and make sure that the application was booted up correctly and can operate.
Okay, and one more question.
But we only have one ball, so.
Okay. Well, you guys mentioned you weren't going to talk about SRM anymore, but do you kind of have a split about how many of your customers that are protecting virtual machines use SRM versus Zerto?
I don't have the number, but I can tell you the trend moves towards the cloud recovery virtual service product, which is powered by Zerto. Yeah. You won? Sure.
All right.
Oh, that was calculated.
That was, you're calculating the bounce. All right, guys, any other questions? I have one more football to give away. Oh, there we go. In the back, sir.
On your SLAs, for the SLA penalties, do you pay those on failed tests as well as active failovers?
Only if the test failed 2 times in a row. So okay. Yeah.
So yes, we do with some parameters and conditions. Okay, this is a good one. Let's see if I can get it all the way in the back. This is like a 3-point shot. Oh, not even close.
It was deflated.
It was deflated. Okay, guys, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you. Please come visit us.